This is Black Woman CEO. Welcome to the only podcast dedicated to giving you the raw and real experiences of successful Black women entrepreneurs. Yes, girl, we're talking about the behind the scenes strategies of what it takes to increase in your profit, power, and purpose. I am your host, Quanisha Green, and I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show. Hey there. This is Quanisha Green, your host of the Black Women CEO podcast. So excited for another excellent guest to come on, another powerhouse, as to use her words, CEO, Dr. Cherita Weatherspoon. Hey, Dr. Cherita.
Hey.
So I'm really excited to get started. Dr. Cherita has been in our community for a long time. About 2 years, and she does such great work. So of course, as usual, I'm going to have the guest introduce herself. But Dr. Cherita has really been, how to say this, an inspiration for me and how she runs her business and do the work and really attending to her mindset, right? Dr. Cherita, as she'll share, has been an entrepreneur for a long time, doing really well. But I think she has such a great story of kind of even when you are in the growth phase, kind of feeling like you're at a ceiling and overcome that. And she really helps women to tap into their power. So it's been great seeing over time Dr. Cherita do that. And she's going to share some of her awesome tips around stepping into and owning your power too, as she talks about the importance of her work as well as her journey stepping into a CEO. So once again, thank you, Dr. Cherita, for joining us here. So as usual with the guests, we always start with who you be, really describing yourself first beyond what you do, and then we'll jump into more about your work and your mission.
Okay, so who I be? I am a powerhouse woman, and that is decidedly so. I am a woman who is standing in her power, owning what she desires and what she wants out of life, and doing the work necessary to make those things a reality. And as a result, I am happy, I am fulfilled, I am inspired to help others, and just ultimately living my best life. But, my best keeps getting better.
Thank you for sharing that about yourself. So what is your mission, and tell us more about the work that you do?
So my mission is really to help women, and Black women in particular, to own their own power and profit from it. So it's really about figuring out what it is they have to offer to the world, and then how do they monetize that so they can build the life that they want, so they can have impact in the world, but at the same time generate income and experience the independence that they desire, so they can show up authentically, fully who they are in all of the other roles of their lives.
Okay, I love that. And I love that you focus on Black women too, because we have a unique journey, especially when we are very mission oriented. We do well in our career, but how does that translate over to entrepreneurship and all these misconceptions that we can have around it that keeps us from fully kind of executing? So with that, can you go deeper into your area of expertise here? And then why do you feel like it's even important work to do?
So there are two things that I focus on in my work. One is on the business coaching side, where I help aspiring entrepreneurs really hone in on what that thing is that they want to offer to the world. And in particular, I'm working with women who have a desire to be a coach, consultant, trainer, speaker, author. So maybe what you would call an expert-based entrepreneur. And figuring out what their messaging is and how are they going to package up their expertise and offer that to the world, and at a price point that demonstrates and reflects the value that they're bringing to the individuals or organizations that they serve. And then I also work with the same group of women on the publishing side, where I help them take their message into the world through books, whether that is an individually authored book or managing anthology projects for them. So I am, I guess, what you would call an indie publisher, but my business is set up a little different, where typically I am doing done for you publishing. So you're still publishing under your own business name and you will be considered a self-publisher, but I do all the work of publishing, and you get to, keep your royalties and your rights is how I describe it. So those are the two areas of expertise that I am choosing to focus on in my business.
Okay, awesome. And I think particularly when you consider that Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, but unfortunately we make the least amount of revenue by both gender and race, and the combination of gender and race. And as of the last report, as of this recording, we're in 2020, so 2019 state of, what was it? State of Women-Owned Businesses that was commissioned by American Express. Black women on average are generating $24,000 in gross revenue. So how do you see that kind of connected to your work, maybe around the urgency of helping women, particularly Black women, to do this work?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it we know is mindset, and really understanding and accepting that we deserve to receive in money,
right,
equivalent to the value that we're giving out, and that it's okay.
Not a gift basket.
Right, exactly. right. It's okay to profit from your purpose, to be paid for your purpose. I think a lot of times, and I think this may be a community or cultural type of thing, especially if you have a religious background, where you feel like, if you're called to do something, you should just give that to the world and not expect or even ask for anything in return. But I don't know. I mean, Jesus really wasn't poor. You know what I mean? They had coffers with money in it. So I think part of it is, helping them when we talk about, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is the work that I'm going to do. And being able to recognize the impact that their work has on who that they're serving, and the value that that's bringing to them, whether it's, how much money it's saving them, how much revenue it's generating, if it's, retaining employees, because we know the cost of hiring employees is a lot higher than returning the ones that you have. Whatever the work you're doing, it can probably be tied to some sort of financial impact that is going to continue long after your work has ended with them. So, not that you're going to charge $1 million for anything, but you need to charge value, So helping them to figure out what that pricing is that makes sense for the market that they're targeting, that they're comfortable with, but challenging them as well. Because one of my biggest things is that you have to build a business that is impactful for you as well as for the people you serve. And if you are not getting paid what you need to get paid, you're not going to continue to love what you do. Like, you're going to begin to be resentful about that. And obviously you don't ever want to feel that way about work that you were called to do, or any work that you have to do, really. So again, a lot of it goes back to mindset, and then sometimes we just have to be challenged to put the numbers out there and see how people respond.
I can definitely see how all that relates to stepping in and owning your power. One activity I do with our clients here at Black Women CEO, you may have done it, is actually start quantifying, right, all this expertise, like how many years of education, how many years in your job have you been using these skills? And I love that you're connecting it to value. So, what is the value of your impact in the world around what they're doing, and tying that to a number, right? So that people invest at a high level, and it's honoring them as well as honoring the potential clients too, right? In that way, and helping them as for, if listeners, if you don't know, pricing is heavily related to commitment. Right. So it's one way of doing the pricing is also honoring both people and coming to the space. I can definitely see how that helps your clients to feel more empowered, right, and confident in what they do. So I know you wanted to talk about stepping in and owning your power. So in addition to what you shared, are there any other tips that maybe you learned along your journey? We are going to ask you more about, I am going to ask you more about your your journey in a second, but is there anything that either you learned or that you teach your clients that you can share with folks about that stepping in and owning your power?
One of the things is to recognize who you are in your other roles. Because a lot of times we feel like when we enter entrepreneurship specifically, that, we've got to develop all of these new skills. And in some cases that may be true, but what have you been doing? What have you been doing in your job? What have you been doing in your volunteer roles? What have you been doing as, a wife or mother in your household? There's a lot of these transferable skills that you can apply in entrepreneurship, where you've already proven that, like, you're the bomb, right? You're rocking it here. But then for some reason, when you look over entrepreneurship, we lose that confidence. We feel like we're not as good as we were, but a lot of times it's the same skill set, the same knowledge that we just need to apply. So it really is, kind of recognizing what you're already bringing to the table and how you can utilize that now in this role of CEO, running your own business.
I love that. And we have an episode here, and I'll put it in the show notes, to remember who you are. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's essentially what you're helping women to do. And, I found that too. For some reason, the confidence doesn't translate over. And like you said, it's a lot of the mindset. And that's transfer over from everyone, their primary job, and even the accolades they maybe have achieved academically and different things. And as you know, Black Women CEO, we work with highly educated women. So we're talking about women who are medical doctors, PhDs like Dr. Cherita, right? Attorneys, right? And other folks who have degrees or certifications, as well as gone to prestigious universities, all these other things. So, kind of on a surface level, you wouldn't think like, oh, they're dealing with confidence challenges. But it definitely is. And I know you work with a lot of professional women, also women who have done well, like you said, in their community and different spaces. So, it is something that we need to acknowledge, that sometimes that imposter syndrome comes up, right? The perfectionism, which is really rooted in this idea that you're not good enough. So, a lot of this comes up, and in a way it's normal. If you really see it often, you can say like, okay, this is also a norm that people may have transitioning from work to entrepreneurship, or doing it parallel, right? Because we know a lot of people are kind of starting their businesses on the side until they can grow to a place where they can, lead the workforce. So definitely remembering who you are and all the skills. I love that you said all the skills and strengths that you bring and that have you developed in all these different areas of lives will definitely serve you in entrepreneurship. So I think when we start to hone in and actually recognize it and put it in front of our faces, we actually can see that we're way more quote unquote powerful, right? Than kind of been made out to be. And when, coaches like you actually reflect that back to their clients, I always say they can lean on your trust, right? Until they own that too. So that's why it's so important sometimes to get help, because we can have blinders on, right? Or these blocks to that. So how do you actually hold space for clients in that respect of helping them to step in and own their power?
So it really is about spending, and this is much easier done like one-on-one than in group settings, where you're asking these questions that force them to reflect and to verbalize, one, some of their fears and some of their beliefs, but then identifying what's actually true and getting them to verbalize that and hearing it and acknowledging the truth in the truth, if that makes sense. I've seen women even break down in that process because they had to recognize how much they were actually worth. And how much value they were bringing in. And when they saw it or heard it, it did something to them, whether it was because no one else ever recognized it, or just because they realized that they were viewing themselves as less than. But I think a lot of times you can move a person so far by your own belief in them, but at some point, they've got to believe it for themselves, and kind of walking them through that process of asking questions and getting them to reflect and say out loud what's in both their head and their heart, and coming to that recognition has been a way that I've been able to see them then, own what it is that they're bringing to the table, as well as owning where there may be some lack and they need to strengthen up some things to really be able to have the impact that they want. But overwhelmingly, the women that I work with, they already have what they need to be powerful and to make the impact that they want to make and to generate the income that they want to generate. But they don't see it yet. They don't see it yet. And they see it possible for other women, but don't see that it's possible for them. So I help them to recognize that, you know, what is the real difference between me and you?
Right.
And really at this point, the difference is that I took action.
Right.
Right? Is that I took action even when I still had the doubt. Even when I still had the fear, even though I still have the fear and the doubt, because it's not 100% gone. You know, every time you're facing the opportunity to rise to another level, those things come back. You know, am I worthy to move to the next level? You know, am I that good? Can I handle it? You know, can I meet these expectations?
Right.
So it's a constant battle, but you've got to be willing to face it and go into it and fight through it so you can get to the other side of it where everything is that you desire in your life and your business.
I love it. Essentially, it's like name it and claim it, right? But with some support
Right.
along the way. And I love that you said when you get to different levels of business, right, different things come up. And I call it a growth edge, right? You know, something gets triggered as you move up. So this is a never ending tending of self. And as Dr. Cherita emphasized, sometimes we need help with that, right? To articulate and name it and see it and then claim it, because you have to claim it in order to whether heal it or fix it. And like you said, people are ready, or all you listeners, right? You already have the power. So often it's getting the stuff out of the way, as Dr. Cherita talked about, that helps you to step into that power. So thank you for sharing that. So I know you just said that you had some struggles around this and growing into your role. So how did you come to own your own role as an expert and CEO?
Well, actually, I have you to thank for that because you played a major role in that. I think I knew that I knew what I knew. I had been preparing to be an entrepreneur long before I started being an entrepreneur. And, you know, I had done some things in the past, you know, with network marketing and things like that. It had some relative success, but that was really somebody else's business that I was helping to grow. Right. And then when I decided that I was going to start my own business, for some reason, although I knew everything that I knew, I felt like I didn't know enough. And it took me, I'm going to say about 3 years to really come to the realization of what it was that was holding me back. And that came through, you know, a group session that I did as a part of one of your programs, and could trace it back to some early experiences that I had in terms of how I was received by women. And women is who I wanted to work with, right? And those, well, at that time it was girls, and, you know, girls are girls, especially as teenagers, right? But the things that I experienced had this long-term impact on me that made me feel like my voice didn't matter. That when people would see me, they would judge me, and they would judge me wrong, and they wouldn't want to hear what I had to say. And that really, that what I had to offer the world, that was my own, was of no value. I mean, I could do for other people without any problem, but if I'm going to put this whole thing together and put it out into the world, you know, like, people aren't going to want to hear about it. They're not going to value what I have to say. And you just helped me make some connections there, that once I realized what it was that was blocking me, I had to make the decision about whether or not I was going to let it continue to block me, or whether I was going to push through. And I decided to push through. Some days are better than others, because I've been this way for most of my life. You know, I'm 48 this year, right? So most of my being has been this kind of stay in the background, don't make too much noise, you know, kind of just get things done, but don't be in the spotlight. But what I'm called to do requires me to do that, right? So some days I can go full force and it's not a problem. And then other days it's a struggle because I literally have to change my way of being to be the CEO that I need to be. But it is within me, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that I have to find the internal power to pull that out on a daily basis. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. You know, that's the truth of it. But I have not given up. I will not give up. And that is like the final determination that absolutely matters in this game that we call entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and then for the long haul, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing how that all connected. And just for the listeners, kind of what I kind of teach or really bring to light is that, you know, we all have these lived experiences. And, you know, as a child, even like a teenager, and this can happen in your 20s too, you know, we're very egocentric, and that's not a bad thing. It's the I, right? That's the letter I, that's part of our ego and our identity. And things can happen to us. And because we're young, we're trying to make sense of the world. And often we think that we are the problem, right? So you hear this a lot when parents divorce, the kid starts to think, well, what did I do wrong? Versus like those adults don't have it together, right? Or they out of love, like, you know, it's just our perception. So we make these rules and we start crafting these beliefs and paradigms around the world. And entrepreneurship is one of the greatest personal development tools because all your ish will come up. Yeah. And so like Dr. Cherita said, like she's very action oriented, but she got to a growth edge, right? And had to examine some things. And so the question becomes, everyone, are you going to say, let that 8-year-old girl continue to run your 48-year-old self, right? And understanding that whoever that girl was or that college student had a limited view of the world, or someone told them something that, you know, maybe you felt that person's opinion weighted more. And so as we become aware of that, we get to make decisions from our adult self, right? On maybe healing that or saying like, you know what, 8-year-old Quanisha, it is okay. We are okay now. And we can make some decisions how we move forward, because you really have to master yourself to master your business. I just wanted to bring out kind of how we talk about it and have talked about it with Black Women CEO. And it really is that question, are you going to let that 8, 13, 20-year-old self who had a very limited understanding of the world to continue to impact you? And I love that you said it's an everyday thing, because we are reprogramming ourselves, like you said, for 48 years, because that belief was made when you were a girl, right? It's almost like cemented in a way. And so by continuing to remind yourself, like, you know, whatever thoughts that you have created or realizations to counter it, we have to do it frequently because we are reprogramming our brain, right? And our concept itself. So I love that you talked about that and was really, and thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty in that way of saying, like, and because I think sometimes with entrepreneurs and on podcasts and videos, they're like, oh, I have this morning routine and I'm such like perfect. We get this perception that like, they have it all together all the time. And as you all have learned in this podcast, I'm like, girl, I'm gonna talk about how I was depressed. And I love that this is the true behind the scenes, you know, aspects of our living and as being successful entrepreneurs. So thank you so much for bringing that to the space. So with that, with your story, like what made you decide to start your business?
Well, in my previous life, I worked in higher education, in executive leadership. And I had over 20 years of experience as a higher ed administrator. My last position was as an assistant VP at a university. And I was laid off and had a decision to make. You know, am I going to look for another job? That I don't want to say I didn't really hate the work that I loved the work that I did, but I found that the organizations I was working for and other leaders didn't rise to the standard that I had placed for, you know, kind of my, you know, my career and what I expected in terms of integrity and ethics and things like that. And just really didn't want to be in that situation again, where I had to either be quiet and just go along and get along, or face consequences for choosing to do the right thing, which was a situation that I had found myself in, really in the last two positions that I was in my career. So I talked with my husband because, you know, I needed his support in whatever it was I was going to do. And he agreed that it was time for me to put everything that I had been given to somebody else into what I wanted to do. So I started on this journey in 2016. Okay, we're going to do this. Now, I still had to figure out what this was, because even with, again, all of the programs I had been in and courses I had taken, like I knew a lot, but I had to be able to put it all together. But essentially that layoff, and then, you know, really just determining that it was time to focus on what I wanted, was what led me into entrepreneurship.
I love that. Sometimes there's a catalyst, right? And then you start examining, like, do I want to go back and subject myself, or I'm tired of this? And so, you know, I'm going to do my own thing. And it's so great that you had your husband as a support, because sometimes our family members don't necessarily get entrepreneurship. They're like, oh, even if they're okay with you doing it, they're like, oh, that's nice. And you're like, no, I got an email subscriber. This is a big deal. I got someone to pay me something, right, for what I do. So it's good that you have that in your corner, because support is so important in community, right, along this too, to be with quote unquote like-minded folks, right? And knowing that, I think it gives you a sense of security. And maybe you can speak to this, when you know, like, particularly your significant other, but maybe just the family in general is supportive of what you do. Did you find that to be true, having your husband there supporting you, or was it just like he was doing his own thing, I'm okay?
Well, it was definitely helpful to know that I had his support, because I mean, we're both professionals. So when I got laid off, obviously that was a hit to our income was cut in half. So then when I make the decision not to go back to work, that's not a decision that just affects me. That literally affects the entire household, right? So I think he had always been supportive of the idea of me starting a business, but we had never really looked at it in terms of, you know, not working and then just totally focusing on that, because what I had been doing was kind of trying to get some things running on the side as I worked this 9 to 5. And I think we both just thought it would kind of be like that for a while. For me, it was just a faith issue. I didn't have enough faith in myself to walk away from the job. I felt like it was secure, which obviously it proved that it was not, you know. But knowing that he supported me in spite of the deficit that decision would bring to our household, at least initially, was, I think for me, it was necessary. So I did not have to carry any guilt for maybe having to say no to things that I would have been able to say yes to had I still been working. And what I think made it easy for him to say yes was because he knew where I was emotionally and mentally as it related to my job. So while I did complain about work, it wasn't just complaining. He knew that my work was taking a toll on me, and he knew that was changing who I was at home.
Right.
And I think for him, it was, I need to let her do this, and we just need to see where it goes, because I see what this is doing to her. And this has to be better. This has to be better. So I do say jokingly a lot of times that, you know, my husband has always loved me, but he likes me a lot more than he did maybe a couple of years before I started my business. Literally, the decision to not take another job lifted a weight off of me. Yeah.
Yes. As they say, happy wife, happy home. That way. But thank you for sharing that, because often when people are, I know in our community, at least from my entrepreneur experience as a, you know, coach and trainer, often people kind of say, oh, I have to talk to my husband. And one thing I suggest with them is to go to that from a place of power. Like, I think it's different when you're like, oh, I kind of want to do this, versus like, here's where I am. Here's what I would like to implement, but I wanted to get your opinion.
Mhm.
about it. So going, like, as we're talking about power, right? Having that conversation from a place of power versus like a place of insecurity or doubt, because then what our significant other, our partner, wants to do is protect us. So they may be like, no, I think you should just go back to work. So I love that you kind of went into it. It's not so much with a plan, but from a place of like clarity and maybe confidence, so
Right.
that your spouse could really be receptive of like, here's what it is. But I'm coming to you, because I know it impacts the household. And I think, the more we can kind of echo that for women too, I think is so important, because, it is a partnership, but how are you coming as a partner versus, like I said, an insecurity or a very doubtful place in that way. So what were some other early challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
So getting the clarity that I needed to, figure out how all of these pieces fit together for me. So my business has had several iterations over
Mhm.
the 4 years now. With me, first starting off doing just what I knew to do for my career. So I was doing, consulting and grant writing, and grant evaluations and things like that. But just, this is not, I am not happy doing this. I can do it. I'm skilled at it. I'm good at it, but I don't
Mhm.
want to do this, and then kind of getting caught in the trap of just, doing, I think a lot of new entrepreneurs do this. They go where they think they can make the money.
Mhm.
I know I can sell this. I know I can offer this. People are going to buy this. So this is what I'm going to do. Or even taking on clients and customers that you shouldn't be working with, just so you can have the payday. And
Right.
while I understand why we do that, it's really not a good thing to do. Now, if you can't pay your rent, that's a different story. But if you have some flexibility there, you want to stay true to what you're saying your business is and who it is that you serve and
Mhm.
what you do to the extent possible. But I had to gain some clarity, and then I had to again recognize what I was bringing to the table, because I knew I wanted to do business coaching. I just didn't feel like I was qualified to do business coaching. Even though I have a degree in business, have a degree in leadership,
Mhm.
I had done some smaller businesses in the past, and people had been coming to me for years about advice on their business. And it was just because I had been doing all this studying and preparing for my own thing. Like, I knew so much. And, sometimes like people would ask me, like, well, how do you know this? It's like, I know, I know it. And when they would do what I would recommend, like, they would see results from that.
Mhm.
And it took a friend saying to me that, like, she believed I was a life coach at this moment. And she believed that,
Mhm.
I could be a good life coach. And, that was great. But she was like, I wouldn't hire you to be my life coach. I would hire you to be my business coach. She's like,
Mhm.
whenever I call you as a friend and I'm just talking to you about my issues with my business, like, you're right in there. You're telling me A, B, C, and D. And then I take action on what you say and something happens. She's like, why aren't you doing business coaching? I'm like, I'm not qualified to be a business coach. But that conversation really, again, helped me to reflect on what I was bringing to the table, and like, okay, this is what you want to do. You know a lot. You got a lot of skill. Maybe I'm not the business coach yet who can coach someone who's already making $1 million, right?
Mhm.
But I know where I can help people right now. And as I get more experience in that, and grow in that, then obviously I can then expand who I'm able to help. But getting that clarity, and then, finding a model to follow to help piece things together,
Mhm.
which again is one of the things that you and your programs were able to help me with. And there were some other coaches that I've worked with that help with different pieces.
Mhm.
But I would say with that, get help early. I think I waited too
Mhm.
long to get help. I think if I had gotten help at the point that I decided to launch my business, that I would be much farther than where I am now. And I think
Mhm.
I've had good growth in the time that I've had. But I think I would be far past where I am now had I gotten help year one. rather
Mhm.
than in year 3.
I love that you mentioned that. A couple of things that you mentioned, I want to pull out that one, getting help from the very beginning, because sometimes we think, oh, I got to make money to then hire someone, but you may be making all this mistakes or making it more complicated than if you got help and someone could have gave you a really clear path or some guidance or helped you with, like you said, how you help people with mindset, right? That helped to get things out of the way where you could have had a quantum leap, right? From the beginning instead of going through some of the things. So I wanted to highlight that, like getting support, asking for help, or investing in help, probably a better term, because you're investing in yourself through other people. The other thing I wanted to pull out that you said was feelings, right? I think sometimes we disregard our feelings, and as entrepreneurs, even we're like, oh, I gotta do the grind, the hustle, right? Instead of really tapping into like what brings you joy, who do you enjoy working with? And as you said, sometimes it's an experiment. Like you started grant writing, you're like, okay, it's okay, I don't really like this, right? And then the next thing, like, okay, I like this, but how do I tweak it? And then also listening to people, right? What are people asking you for? What do people keep coming to you for? And then starting to put, a price tag on that to honor yourself and them. And then you'll see that you actually have all these experiences. So it was really interesting that your friend kind of could reflect back
Right.
your strengths, and then you could do your own reflection of like, hey, I do have a degree in business. And it's like, okay, then basically the work that you do with your clients, like helping you to remember who they, remember who they are in that respect. So it sounds like you had to do that for yourself. And I always tell people sometimes we have to lean on other people's trust and belief until like ours gets there too. So that's kind of what I heard as you were talking about
Mhm.
these challenges in that way. So we know you have a family. So how have you integrated like work, business, life, self-care, and family on your journey?
So again, some days are better than others.
Right.
But just, I would say, making the decision to start my business did allow me to be more present emotionally, for my family, because I was not experiencing the drain that I had been experiencing working. So just I had more energy. I was more aware and here and like present in the moment. Once my business got off of the ground, obviously, I'm full-time in my business. I work from home. I have flexibility in my schedule. So, being able to take my children to school and pick them up, or just whatever they might need during the day has been awesome. Having more free time, to spend quality time with my family, because I'm not bringing work home and I don't have people calling me and texting me, because I'm able to, establish boundaries and parameters with my clients, right? Who, because they are my ideal clients, respect those boundaries and parameters. Hint, hint. But I think the self-care thing, I think, for Black women in general is something I think we have to be very intentional about, because we have been, trained to put other people first all the time. One of the things that shifted in me after I started my business was just, I made a decision that I was not going to be all things for all people anymore, including the people who lived in my house.
Snapping over here.
Which really was a self-care issue for me, because I found that, I was just taking on everything, yes, obviously I was, mom and wife, I'm the chef and, the cleaner, the transportation person, the calendar keeper, and I'm liaising between this person and that person. I'm making sure dad knows everything, because all the kids come and tell me everything. And, like all of that back and forth, I was like, I can't do it. And, 2 of my children are actually adults now. And I have a 16-year-old and a now 13-year-old. And, the 13-year-old, yeah, I got you. I got you. The rest of y'all need to figure this out.
She's like, y'all grown. I did my job.
Exactly. And no, like, you tell me something, don't expect me to go and deliver it to your dad. You go talk to your dad. And the dad, don't you expect me to tell you everything they tell me. I heard it. Oh, okay, I respond to it. If I don't have anything else to do, it's out of my mind. And it really, oh my goodness, that freed me so much from the pressure that I was feeling And then just communicating with them about what I needed them to do and to help out. So, you know, everybody has their roles around the house and everybody needs to do what they're supposed to do. And then I think probably where I struggled the most is because I don't watch a lot of TV. So kind of when I've done my work day and we've had dinner and everything, it's like, okay, so what do I do now? If I don't want to watch TV. So a lot of times I do end up coming back in and working. But it feels good to me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. And I love how you connect the boundaries to self-care. And it's okay to redefine what that looks like in relationships, right? Particularly with family in our household as we work. Because the same way they will honor you going to your 9 to 5, right? Is like, I'm in this office. But then, you like you said, it was beyond your business roles. It was like, how do you relate to me as mom and wife? Right. And renegotiating that so that you have the space, one, for it sounds like for your own happiness and relaxation, but then that also freed up the space so that you can, work from your business, quote unquote, to use your word, from a powerful place. Right. In that way too. And I definitely get the whole going back to work after you do something. I think I'm a workaholic. I'm like, oh, let me go, write a blog post. It's like 8:00 and I'm on my notes phone. I'm like, I really should be doing something else. But I love that you said it's enjoyable for you. And once again, it goes away from this, this grind. I love something someone said. It was like hustle. Either it was like hustle with harmony or hustle and flow. It was something like that, where even it was redefining this word called hustle. Because I think if someone saw you at night, they're like, oh, she hustling. But no, you were in this state of flow, right? In this state of joy and happiness around it, which totally changes how we relate to our business. If we think of our business as something that's external from us, right? It's its own entity and you have a relationship with it. So thank you for bringing that to the space, and even with the client part, it's like, is this making you happy and joyful? Because we don't have to be unhappy in our businesses. And actually, like you said, you want to build it around your lifestyle and your desired life. So if you are feeling upset and sad or aggravated, it sounds like that's the time to start to reevaluate in the way like Dr. Cherita did, right? So maybe evaluating how you show up to work, or what's happening external to that maybe is adding weight. So when you sit down, you're not even like focused to work on your business and grow it. So as we kind of close, I would love to hear, like, what is you gave so many pieces of wisdom, but what is one piece of wisdom you would share with the woman who is frustrated building her business and desires to become a rock star CEO? Or another way to frame it is, what do you wish someone told you when you started this journey?
I would go back to what I said earlier, and that is to get help early. So if you're even already in your business, but you've hit that roadblock, you feel like you're stalled in some way, don't try to figure your way out of it. Get help, because there's only so much of the picture you can see when you're part of the picture. Right? So you need someone who's on the outside to look in to help you get the clarity that you need and to see the things that you cannot see, so you can make the best decisions and move forward. And to give you a different perspective and have someone to soundboard with, just don't because I think we tend to do that, to just try to figure it out ourselves. And we probably can, but at what cost? How much time is that going to take you? How much, more money are you going to spend, kind of investing in done do it yourself kind of stuff, and trying to figure out how to piece things together versus making the investment that you are worthy of in yourself to get the help that you need to help propel you forward.
I love that you connected that investing to self-worth, right? Because are we worth the investment? And we make investments already as Black women, but a lot of times it's on our external things. Like you got that good hair, weave, or the lace front wig, or you getting your hair done, right? Either way, you make sure your nails are done, or maybe you have on, name brand or high quality clothes. And it's like, well, what about you investing in your skills and your growth? Like, are you doing that? Is there quality in that at a high level? And you see that as another way. Because I think often, particularly when we come from work, we do professional development, but somebody else is paying for it often, right? Yeah. So it really is when you have to turn it around and use your own money right? Is that a priority, right? And one way you can tell what your priorities are is actually look at where you are spending your money and your time in that way. And I definitely agree with you that as we become entrepreneurs, we have to shift and see not only I think people are so external, like, oh, I'm investing in that course that's going to maybe benefit that person, but it's like, actually you're investing in yourself. So I love that you kind of, re-emphasize the invest in yourself, folks. It will make your journey a bit easier in that way. So the last question I have is, what's your personal mantra, like a motto or saying or quote that you live by?
One of the ones I've been saying recently, more publicly, is faith is as faith does, which is really about putting action to what you believe in or what you say you believe in or what you envision for yourself. So when I think about, what I believe my business is, let's say 10 years from now, and the impact that I can have, like there are certain action that I have to take if I believe that's true and that is possible, right? So, just really have the faith, but then take the action that demonstrates you have the faith.
Yes. Act, y'all. Act. That's how your riches are going to come, right? When you're actually acting on, to get towards these desires and wants that you have, or the business success, right?
Yeah.
That you're looking for. So thank you so much. I hope you all feel like you can step in and own your power as a result of this episode. So Dr. Cherita, for those who want to connect with you, where do they find you and connect so that they can learn more about being a powerhouse?
Yes, so they can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Coach Cherita. And if they'd actually like to talk with me for a few minutes about their ideas and, the business that they want to start, they can schedule a complimentary call with me at coachmedrc.com. And I'd love to talk with them during this, power to profit strategy call and help them figure out what their next steps are.
Awesome. And we'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. So either you can just look below or in the description for the podcast. So you can click and go. So we can make that really easy so that you can connect with Dr. Cherita, look to either work with her or even just join her community where you can get some more support around this. And especially if you're an author or wanting to be an author, definitely connect so she can help you in that respect, right? And it's another way to step into your power and get your the vision and mission and the great work that you do out into the world. So thank you so much, Dr. Cherita, for, honoring us and showing up and becoming a part of our community and sharing all of what you do. You've been such an asset in so many different ways to Black Women CEO. And it's been such a pleasure to see your journey and that growth as you continue to step into the new roles of entrepreneurship and grow your business.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being a part of your community and your journey.
So I want to leave you with our motto that power is the ability to create your reality. So go forth and be powerful, sister, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace. Oh girl, the episode stopped, but the party is not over. I want you to go ahead and subscribe, like, and rate this show. Leave us a comment sharing your takeaways. And when you're done with that, come on over to blackwomenceo.com, join our movement. And when you do that, you'll get the special invitation to join us in our community. Well, I will love to put a face to that name, girl. So this is Quanisha signing off, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Peace and love.